Hey everyone, welcome back. This is episode 2 of the Real Estate Hacks.
Bada boom, bada bang.
I like that, Andrew. So this episode, I think we're going to be focusing on first-time investors and how they can take advantage of the new immigration policy. And first off, I want to start off. My name is Jeremy McGraw. Right beside me, I have Graeme Thompson. How are you, Graeme?
Pretty well.
That's great. How are you, Andrew?
I'm feeling great about this one. I feel like we need some Joe Rogan cigars in here.
Joe Rogan
Maybe.
cigars.
I don't know if they'll let us smoke in here.
Like Churchill's and over in
Big,
Birmingham.
big 40 centimeter Michael Jordan Cubans.
Great time.
I should have brought a drink as well. But anyways, and last but not least, we have Michael Citron.
Thanks, Jeremy. I'm doing great today.
Perfect. So welcome back, everyone. I want to touch base, kind of a little bit of quick things what we want to focus on. What I think we should focus on is obviously with first-time investors there. With the immigration policies.
Yeah, I mean, today, obviously, we want to talk about how immigration policy is going to affect real estate and what that means for, investors, first-time home buyers. As a lot of people know, immigration, people come to Canada, whether it's for school, for work, reuniting with their families. That's a huge piece of what goes on in the real estate market because those are new people that need new housing. And if we're low on housing,
yeah,
big deal.
We're definitely short housing. I know like in Windsor, I read a CBC article, we need about 30,000 homes over the next 10 years. And we're only on pace to do about 12,000. But the government says they want to basically double construction. So I don't know, we'll probably get into that a little bit, how they plan on meeting that.
Yeah, let's talk about immigration. Let's talk about what that means. Let's talk about what a temporary resident is. Let's talk about what international students are doing.
So you're talking about temporary as well, right? So we have a temporary, we have a permanent resident, right? And then obviously a full-time citizen. So there's like 3 different tiers. And I guess each person, some can buy and some can't. I don't know if a temporary resident right now can buy. I don't believe they can. Can they, Graeme?
Well, let's chat about that later.
Sure.
I think you and Michael Citron and Andrew will be the guys to talk about that.
Probably get into that for sure.
So why don't we start off with what is an immigrant? Like, what is an immigrant to Canada?
Well, a newcomer to Canada could mean many things. I mean, we have temporary, we have permanent residents.
You got skilled trade workers.
Yeah. So there's
students,
everything, right? So in terms of temporary residents, we have students, we have people coming over on visas,
refugees, right? Too.
And then obviously after we, temporary residents have been here for a while, they either convert to full-time residents, like permanent residents, or they leave, or they stay, and who knows. But
I feel like most people stay just because, I know we're all Canadian here, but like Canada's a great country, whether you're Canadian or not. Like people love to come to Canada for many reasons, right? Like Canada's got flexibility. You can start a business, you can really do whatever you want. I mean, within reason, right?
Yeah.
Which I think puts Canada at a huge advantage, which is why, Justin Trudeau wants, almost 500,000 people coming here every single year. Canada's great.
Jeremy sent me a great stat on this, actually. I don't know if he sent it to you guys, but it's surrounding, what these temporary residents are doing, what percentage of them are actually turning into permanent residents and how that's changing.
That's something great to talk about right now. So basically what we saw was there was an article by the CIBC, I think the deputy chief there, Benjamin Tal. He reported something like we wanted at least 400,000 new, basically the new immigrants, right? But what happened was when they did the thing, it was during COVID. And basically what happened is that we couldn't have people coming and going. So a lot of these people that were already here, the temporary on visas and stuff, they expired. And the government was like, you know what, instead of, going back to your country or just reapplying for another visa, why don't you apply for your permanent residency and kind of go from there? So we had, I think about...
what were the numbers?
I think it was almost 70% of those. I think we had 405,000. I want to say this was
2021, right? Yeah.
2021. Yeah. So we had about 405,000 new immigrants. However, about 70% of them were already in the country. They were either on visas that they're expired, and
those are big numbers.
That's huge.
Those are temporary residents that are converting to permanent residents.
Correct. So people were like, oh, well, that didn't really affect us too much and they weren't looking at the big picture because they're like, oh, 400,000 people came to the country. We seem to have enough, units to be able to either rent to them or sell them a house, right? But that's not true because 70% of them were already here and they were already consuming real estate, which is either owning a house or renting.
Yeah, how did that change? Because I think it changed in 2022, right?
Well, yeah, the obviously COVID rules and laws changed and people were allowed to come to the country. We still wanted that 400,000 plus, and we don't have the direct numbers relating to that yet. However, what I was told is that 70% dropped to 40%. So we have a difference from the previous year of almost 30% of the people are now new to Canada. Wow. And they weren't here, which
those are big numbers.
Yeah, well, even of 400,000 plus people.
Yeah, even I've noticed like we've been booking a lot of appointments with new buyers and stuff like that, and a lot of them actually are newcomers to Canada, believe it or not. But I mean, we do still work with the vast majority are local Canadians in the market. But yeah, they're definitely wanting to buy and get into the market, and
they want to chase that Canadian dream, right?
Yeah, I agree with that. How have you, Mike, the mortgage side, like? Have you seen a lot of newcomers to Canada, like coming over to Lend City or inquiring about mortgages and stuff like that?
Yeah, honestly, I'd say probably a quarter of my total inquiries are new to Canada.
Wow, that's
or
big.
they usually have their PR status or they're on a working visa and they've applied for their PR and they're just waiting for it to come through. But yeah, so it's a big chunk of the business for sure.
That's pretty cool. I mean, well, yeah, I know. Basically means we got to build more homes.
Yeah, absolutely, and I think that's it kind of all correlates, right? They want to bring more people over here to work because we do need more skilled labor, especially for construction and build these houses for newcomers to Canada, but also Canadians as well. We just have a huge housing shortage going on right now.
There is a big shortage. And now I know all of us are investors. What do you guys think? What's your take on how the new investor or maybe someone that's starting out could potentially get into this market and benefit from immigration? And I know we got interest rates and there's a lot of stuff going on in the world, but I think there are some benefits. I don't know.
Well, I'll start with giving you some high level numbers on the immigration policy. I mean, 90% of our labor force growth rate is based off immigration. So that means, our labor force is growing. 90% of that is because of immigration. That's a huge, huge impact. And another huge number is, we talk about immigrant in terms of, permanent residents, but we're not talking about temporary residents. We had almost 1.4 million temporary residents in 2021.
Graeme, can you quickly explain what a temporary resident is?
Yeah, so just backtracking a little bit. Temporary resident, we're talking students, we're talking people that are here on visas.
Visas, okay.
And then as you transition to a permanent resident, the game changes. Now you're part of our force. You're part of the permanent resident force. So and then obviously you can gain Canadian citizen after that.
So I read a stat the other day. So last year we're actually up 1,200 enrollments at the University of Windsor alone. So that's insane. So if you think of student rental homes, how many beds are they on average, Jay? What do you think? I know you've sold a lot of student rentals.
Well, I mean, to be honest with you, most of these properties are pushing 5-6 bedrooms each property now, right?
Yeah, so you got another 1,200 people.
Well, we don't really see, because it doesn't make sense. For example, when a bedroom is renting out for $500, $600 a room, right? You have a 3-bedroom house. That 3-bedroom house is still $300,000. You're going to get $1,800 a month inclusive, having to pay for furniture and Wi-Fi. It just doesn't make any sense. At that point, you're going to flip it just to a normal rental, right? Yeah. So for a student rental, you need to have at least, I think I would say if I were to buy one today.
Now explain this, hold on a sec for the viewers just to make it simple. Why would you switch it over to a regular rental?
Well, here's the thing. That's a great question. So when we have a 3-bedroom, we're just going to talk about a regular 3-bed, 1-bath house, right?
Yep.
It could be the student rental market. We'll put it right in the student rental market. But if we're getting, let's say $600 a room, which is a fair number, that's $600, $1,200, $1,800. But what we do with student rentals is we have mostly inclusive rents because we're catering by bedrooms.
So basically, there's more expenses.
There will be more expensive
compared to just a regular rental.
You're paying
right?
you're paying the utilities. You're paying for Wi-Fi. You're paying to have furniture in the house, normal wear and tear, right? Where at the same time, a 3-bedroom, 1-bath house in Windsor can easily rent out for $1,600 to $1,800, if not more. right? Plus utilities. Now you don't have to worry about buying furniture. Now you don't have to worry about any of the utilities at all. No having 5 or 6 people with water, right? You don't have to worry about hydro, gas. You don't have to worry about anything besides your basic wear and tear, which you would have.
So basically, like for a student rental, you should almost be getting more money. Like it should be more advantageous, right? Is that what you know what I mean? Because if you just have you'd want more cash flow basically because you have all these extra expenses.
Think about it this way. When you're a single family resident investor, right? You have one property, you have one tenant. In the case of a student rental, each bedroom is a tenant. Like you can have 5, 6 different tenants, right?
It's a lot of toilet flushing.
It's a lot of showers, right? So
plus there's a tenant turnover too, right? Like
every 10 months.
That's a nice thing though too, is that if you do have a student rental and you are getting those higher rents and you're getting the turnover, then you can reset the rents.
Yeah.
So that's something cool that maybe new investors should be aware of, is that you always get the new rent level, right? So if rent's going up, 15, 20% each year, you can, take advantage of that.
You can take advantage of that for
cool.
sure.
And
Yeah.
one of the things I do like, because I'm not a student rental investor myself, I've been there, done that. I think Graeme has as well. What I do like about one of the pros is that these guys are just here, guys and girls are here only to basically get their degrees. They're not going to be a professional tenant for the most part. So what they're going to do is they're so focused on school and getting their degree that they're going to pay the rent. They're going to make sure their rent's paid on time for the most part. Statistically, I think it's a lot higher than anything else, right?
Yeah, I'm just going to add on to that. As a property manager, cosign. You can also get these the parents of these students to co-sign on these, and if you have parents on these leases, you can add them as well, and that really can protect your rent,
your asset.
That's
too.
pretty cool. That's cool.
Yeah.
So that's kind of with the student rentals, I would say, right? I want to touch back and add something else as well. I read another article in this recently that one of the think tanks was talking about new immigration, right, and all that kind of stuff, and how it relates to basically students. Because this is a big one right here. So when they did a study, Statistics Canada did a study, and they were asking students, are you going to be moving back in with your parents after the school year's done, right? A lot of the people, for the most part, would have said yes. When I was in school, I would have said yes. For most, I think we all would. That is considered you are part of your parents' household. You're not your own household.
So that would kill the data. So
it kills the data, which means that all these people that have consumed rent for the last 10 months, they're renters. For 2 months, they're maybe 2 or 3 months, they're back at their parents' house.
So that means, let's say in Montreal,
absolutely,
if you have a student there, they're not going to be marked as someone living in Montreal because they're moving back home. So they're correct. They're not going to actually build in Montreal for those students.
Let's just say that they're from Windsor, right, and they're going to school in Montreal, and they're only living in Windsor right now for 2 or 3 months of the year because of their parents, right, during the off season.
Yeah.
And they're renting. They have to rent in Montreal. They're not considered an actual renter. They're not, because that's not their household. Their household is their parents' house, according to Statistics Canada. So all of our numbers, all the numbers we have are skewed right now, which is actually more favorable for investors because we're being told you have these numbers, which are great numbers to begin with, but they're actually realistically more because you still need these students. So when they're saying, hey, we need 15,000 homes, we probably need a lot more than that because the numbers are so skewed. We have the student rental market has slowly, as a realtor, when I first started, you didn't want to go past the first 3 or 4 streets. Now we're going past Campbell, we're in McKay, we're farther out than we normally
you're almost
would be.
moving 15 blocks out, and sometimes even further.
Yeah.
I've had clients call for properties in Ford City, around the Drouillard area. I don't know if everyone's familiar with that. Some of the viewers, reach out to us. We could, send you a map of the city, but almost kilometers out from where the university is because everything around the university has been built up, which is why I know some of our friends are doing ADUs in the back of their properties if they're approved for it to, make up for the lack of housing.
Oh yeah. And talking just students, if you want to know high level numbers, we had a huge growth between 2020 and 2021, which had a lot to do with COVID as well. But we went from 200 and change to 400 and change just in international students. So when we hear these immigration policies of 400,000, a lot of people might think, oh, it's just 400,000 people coming to Canada. That's not the truth. It's 1.4 million. Only 400 and change of those people are international students.
I feel like there's going to be some big advantages for first-time investors, even experienced ones. I know we're going to be talking about first-time investors, but some massive, massive advantages to picking up, whether it's a student rental or just a basic rental.
Yeah, in terms of investing, I mean, I think the biggest thing here, guys, is everyone's worried about interest rates. I think not enough people are touching on this, but immigration is combating that.
It's like a double-edged sword there, right?
Exactly,
you got rates going up,
Andrew.
but then you got 500,000 people coming here every year. It's
with,
crazy.
with a lack of supply, right?
Yeah.
And I want to touch base maybe on that as well.
That's a big point because of these interest rates. How many builders are canceling on their builds?
Huge number, because think
Builders
about that.
can't even sell anything right now.
Well, the cost of trades are just astronomical right now because we don't have enough trades to begin with. I think that's something we should be looking into. So if any viewers or listeners want a good job, I would say the trades right now are probably a job to get into because we don't have enough. I mean, as
trades
an
is
investor,
huge.
and Graham's an investor as well, and it's tough to find people that actually, that are reliable, show up on time.
Yeah, called Thompson Electrical, yeah.
Absolutely, right? So, but one of those things is that we're short on trades. So that affects the market. The costs are rising. I mean, the cost of wood has dropped down, but supplies with inflation have gone up, right? 20, 40%. So it doesn't make sense to build. And I was talking to some of these builders, and they're like, well, I have to charge $700,000 for a brand new house. That's a starting amount. Most of these homes are going
And
well.
most people can't afford that. Yeah.
Yeah, right. So a lot of these builders, and they have to pay the interest rates up front because they're building the properties, right? So it doesn't make sense. It's not feasible because people are not going to buy them because they're just at this point astronomical. I mean, $4,000 or $5,000 a month to own a house, a brand new one, where you can buy a similar square footage, right, for probably half the mortgage rate, half the utilities, and all that kind of stuff, right?
Yeah. And a lot of people are worried. I mean, there's been a ton of layoffs with, massive companies, Google, Amazon, in the States and in Canada as well. I think Canada, because of our immigration policy, comparatively to the U.S., we might not see the housing crash that they might see if there is one looming. I think because of our immigration, I think this is their point, their plan. We might prevent a housing crash.
Or it might not be as bad, maybe.
Yeah.
I mean, we're already down about 36% from last March, so.
Let's not talk about last March.
Well, I think a lot more people are more educated. I think because if we even though it took 2007, 2008, like the housing crisis was fairly recent in because we all went through it, right? But like YouTube and all that kind of stuff wasn't as relevant as it is today. I've talked to more investors that have got into investing because it's so accessible now. Like investing back in the day was like kind of like a closed book. You needed to know somebody that was in it to understand what was
I
going
feel like
on.
investing, like everyone's talking about it. Like not just homes, but like crypto, and you got all this stuff. But like
Tons of things.
everyone's just like, you got YouTube and all these videos. You can just like you guys are watching us right now. People just have access to information, so they're like, oh, let's get into housing.
Yeah, social media is definitely blown up investing because before, like, it was just like you had the TV and stuff and like websites and all that. Like how many times you're flicking through the channel, there's somebody talking about like how to invest in real estate or crypto. Right now, it's like all over Instagram, Facebook. You go on those platforms, just right there in your face, right? So I feel like that's why there's been such growth in all of these industries, like trading stocks, crypto, real estate has had a huge effect. And that's why we've seen prices just skyrocket, right? And I think it's going to come back around. I think right now, though, like we are kind of on like the cusp of a recession. And, they're trying to combat inflation just because there's been so much money produced over the last like few years from this huge boom.
Double on the amount,
Yeah.
I guess.
And so like now, like people could just afford more for so long that they're like, okay, like, it's hurting like your average person who's making like maybe like $30,000-$40,000 a year, right? So that's why they're really trying to get a handle on inflation.
I got a question for you, Mike. So I know I just turned 30 a couple days ago, but
Yeah.
assume I'm 23, 24. I just got out of school. I want to pick up my first investment. Maybe I'm living at home with my parents. What kind of advice would you have for, 23, 24-year-old Andrew? to maybe pick up the first investment?
Right. First, get a down payment, if you want to invest in a multifamily.
So get a job.
Yeah.
Basically, right?
Yeah, definitely.
Or you could probably get a gift, right?
You can get okay. Either get a full-time job with guaranteed minimum hours of 40 hours a week, or part-time if that's all you can find. If you're part-time, you're probably going to need a co-signer. So talk to mom, talk to dad, see if they can co-sign for you. Try and come up with a minimum 5% down payment, or you can get a gift from a family member. So if you want to invest in multifamily, 5% minimum down payment for a duplex. If you want to do 3 or 4 units, we can do 10% down on those. Anything more, 20% down. The more money you have to put down, the more purchasing power you have, right? So then I highly recommend getting into a multifamily for your first property because it can really set you up to expand your portfolio.
Explain that a little bit more.
Yeah, so like two or three units, basically.
Yeah, so the more units you have of rental income coming in, like generally speaking, if you spend $400K on a single family home versus $400K on a duplex, you're probably going to have more rental income coming in on the duplex, right?
Well, of course, yeah.
Yeah, so with that, you can actually use that rental income. You can offset it or use add to income to help you qualify for your next property. You can keep on doing that.
Is there like a limit? So let's say I pick up a duplex, they use that income to qualify me for more. Is there a limit, like where they kind of shut the water off at the bank? Or?
Yeah. So most lenders do have a limit. Most of them, they cap at like 4 or 5 properties. That's why it's important to work with a broker though, because we kind of know like where to place you, for like first time investors, I can point them like, this is where we should start off. Yeah. And then once you hit that limit there, we're going to send you to these guys. You can get another 5 properties through them. They have really high offsets. So it's going to help with all your existing properties. You'll be able to get more here.
Basically talk to someone like Michael Citron.
Yeah.
Scale your portfolio.
Yeah. Reach out to me, call me. We can talk about this, and then like we do have some lenders who have limits of like 25 properties.
Holy.
So like you can be going to them for years before you really cap out there, right?
Wow.
So yeah, like there's definitely strategies to this, and it's important to talk to people who are informed and know where to place you in with direction.
I think do you have all your stuff under commercial, Graeme? Like,
yeah, I switched everything under commercial.
What was the benefit of that? I know this is a more experience question, but
yeah. So if you look at commercial mortgages versus residential, although you might still be personally guaranteeing the mortgages, when you go to buy your personal residence, the debt ratio of, all these other properties is not going to come up when you go to your bank. Okay.
So hold on 1 second here. I want to touch base on what the debt ratio is.
Yeah,
we should explain that.
Essentially, if you own a bunch of properties, you're going to look like a really complicated file to a major bank. But if you don't own a bunch of properties in your name and you have commercial mortgages. So what I mean by that, if you buy all your properties under a corporation and rather than under your personal name, and then you get a commercial mortgage, then you won't look very complicated to an A-lender bank.
Each property would be a business in that sense as well, where, for example, you have a 5-unit building that's making X amount of income versus X amount of debt. If that building's producing cash flowing income, that property is qualifying basically on its own. Obviously, you're still having to possibly guarantee it, is what I'm getting at, right? So, whereas maybe a single family house, if you buy a $400,000 house and that's your max, you're going to be probably SOL trying to buy your next one. Whereas that commercial property, because it's a cash flowing asset, you go buy another property that's cash flowing asset.
Yeah, that's really important. Yeah.
You don't have to worry about the debt ratios, whether or not you own a car that's taking up, $2,000 car payment and stuff like that, right? Because the property itself is making enough income to allow it to qualify as its own entity.
Yeah, and you can actually buy that car under that corporation as well.
And
so if you decide to buy that car and make payments and your business is making decent money, with all these multiple properties, you can actually have that business buy you your, sports car or your new luxury SUV.
I like that. Porsche, yeah, Ferrari, something like that.
Why not?
Why not? But for commercial though, the down payments I think are a little bit different than residential, right?
Yeah, in terms of commercial mortgages, typically are higher LTV, and what I mean by that, loan to loan to value. So your down payment on residential is usually 25%. There have been some credit unions that'll do 20% down actually on duplexes or small residential, still doing a commercial mortgage. But once you get into mixed use and vacant land, your down payments could be high as 50%. So even higher in some cases. So it really just depends on the asset class. And asset classes: industrial, office. We have residential. We have land. We have all the different types of real estate.
Michael, quick question. So as an investor, right? So I know with a first-time home buyer, they need what? They can do minimum 5% down, right?
Minimum 5% down if you're going to be occupying one of the units.
Okay, and then I'm going to ask the CMHC questions afterwards, and we'll get to that. But as an investor, you need to have a minimum down payment, I believe, right? Because I know Graeme mentioned 25, 35 for commercial. Right. Can we do? Is it 20?
Yeah. So if your sole purpose of buying the property is to use it as a rental, it's a 20% minimum down payment. On the commercial side, it's usually 25. Sometimes they can do 20 depending on the property and the performance of the rental income and everything.
So how about this? I'm a first-time home buyer. I want a house hack, and house hack means living in the property and renting out additional units. For example, you have a triplex. We'll say a triplex, right? I'm going to live in maybe the bachelor suite, and I have a 2-bedroom and a 3-bedroom attached to it that happen to be vacant. Can I still buy that property with 5% down because I'm physically moving into a unit?
Yeah, so you can definitely do that. For a triplex, though, it's minimum 10% down. So 3 and 4 units, 10%. After that, 20.
How about a duplex?
Duplex, you could do
Duplex
5.
is 5% down.
So,
yeah.
okay, we'll talk about a duplex. So I'm a first-time home buyer. I want to get going. I don't make a ton of money because I'm just starting off. I was able to buy a duplex, and I need to supplement my income by renting the other unit out. I can put 5% down. I don't need 20% down, right?
Correct. Yeah. And yeah, I absolutely love this strategy. This is actually how I got started in investing in
Is that
real
how you got
estate.
started?
Yeah. I bought a
didn't know
duplex
that.
and I lived in one unit, rented out the
That's
other.
badass.
Yeah, it was awesome. And the great thing about that too is, say you're in the market, say you're approved for like $250K. It might be hard to find a nice single family home for that. If you're open to living in a duplex and having somebody live like up top or down below you, that rental income we can use add to income, and that can really help you qualify for more. We might be able to bump you up from like 250 to 300K.
I got a question for you now, Mike. So you know how you can do the first-time home buyer RRSP, right?
Right.
Where you can borrow from your RRSPs. Can you do the same thing and maybe explain how that works to the audience with like a duplex?
Yes.
Is that possible?
Yeah, so it works the exact same way. As long as you're owner occupying it, you can take the money out of your RRSP. You do have to pay it back within 15 years.
Okay.
But yeah, you pull it out tax-free and you can use it the exact same way as
That's
if
pretty
you're
cool. So if you find a
Really
duplex,
creative, yeah.
imagine you find a duplex that's like $400,000. You got $20K in your RRSPs that you've saved up from working maybe the last couple of years.
Yeah.
You could basically borrow that $20,000, buy that, and then pay back the 20 within the next 15.
Yeah.
How would you actually do that? Like, how do you pull the money out of your RRSP?
Yeah, so you have to get in touch with where your RSPs held at and just
Your bank, your personal bank, where you get your check, your checks.
or your mortgage broker, and then we get in touch with who's holding your RSP, and we explain the situation. And you'll have to sign some papers, and they release the funds for the purpose of using it as a down payment on the purchase of your home.
Wow.
I want to say that's huge too, because I think it's up to $35,000 for an individual and $70,000 for a couple, and $70,000 goes a long way.
Oh yeah.
And I want to say too, I believe the payments don't start until 2 years after your withdrawal. Then I think you have 15 years to pay it back. That's huge.
So who has an RRSP? Like I've never looked at my RRSPs. I don't even know if I have one.
What is it? So yeah, registered retirement savings plan.
Yeah, so people who generally have this, is when you have like a job somewhere, like say you work at like Chrysler or something, they have like an RSP plan, and
Like
sometimes
a company one.
Yeah.
Okay.
So each check you get, like a portion of it comes off your check and goes into the RSP, and then sometimes too the employer actually matches it and they
That's big
put
too.
money in too. Yeah.
So could you borrow from the company one too? Like it'd
Yeah.
work the same way?
They match it.
Oh, that's pretty cool.
Yeah.
So if you're working at Chrysler, they're matching it. That's
So
actually
all you
pretty
need
good.
to do
Yeah.
with some companies, and they'll do 1 to 1 over to a certain amount of dollars, right? But in theory, you could put 17.5 in and they put 17.5 in. Obviously, each company has a different amount, but I think that's huge.
Yeah, it is huge. It helps a lot of people out.
Is
especially in
there
this area.
any other things that first-time home buyers can take advantage of?
Yeah, so like there's a first-time home buyer plan where you can actually the government will actually lend you some of the down payment.
Okay.
So yeah, like
Yeah.
they won't lend you the whole thing, but say you have 5%, it's kind of hard to qualify. If you could get up to 10%, it can really help you. They'll actually give you the 5%. Now the one thing about this is they actually just changed it. So now the government, if they do this, they'll have a 8% stake in your property. So that means if you sell it, they'll get 8% of the profit, right?
Okay, so if you
Or if
made
you sell
if you
the
made
loss, they're
100,000
out
if you made
money too.
100,000, they'd basically take $8,000.
Yeah.
So that's good to touch base on that too. So you're saying that if you, for example, if people with the market the way it is right now, if you were to sell it at a loss, they're taking a hit with you.
Right.
So
yeah.
you're not expected to pay them.
Can the Canadian government's hit be 100% of the loss, or do they just
No.
just stick with the 8?
No, yeah, 8.
So you said that's 5 and 10% or up to 10%?
Yeah, up to 10%. Yeah.
And then, okay. And
So, for new builds, it's up to 10%. If it's existing, 5%.
okay. Is there a time to pay it back, or how does that work? Do you know?
Yeah. So, they basically get paid back by having the equity in the home. Mm-hmm. So one day when you sell it, that's when they get their money back.
Okay, so when you sell it off.
Yeah.
Okay.
So how does it? I know we were just talking about duplexes. So let's say the duplex is vacant, and when I say vacant, no one's living in it, so there's no
Right.
income. You're going to live in one. You might borrow from the RRSPs. Would the bank, take market rent to qualify? Like, do you see what I'm saying?
Yeah. So if it's vacant, there's no lease agreements to go off of. So what they'll do is we'll have to get an appraiser in there, and they'll go and check out the units and look at the comps of the rental rates in the area.
Okay.
And then they will come up with a valuation of the fair market rents for that property, and then they will use that.
Okay. Because I've
as
heard
an
like
income.
even some of my buyers will be like, well, there's no tenant in there. I'm not getting the 1,800, but how do I do this? So
Right.
that's good to explain that. Yeah.
Yeah,
I like
for
that.
sure.
One know what else is huge, and Andrew, you probably know about this as well. So we have a duplex, for example. Let's just say it's priced right, and there's 2 tenants, one on the main floor, one upstairs, right? But the rents are like $600 a month. So when I go show Graeme this property, Graham's gonna be like, well, how am I supposed to buy a $350,000 or $4,000 duplex that's only making $1,200 a month? But a first-time home buyer, they can go in and say, hey, I want to move into one of these units, and maybe even negotiate a better purchase price. So they can actually get a fairly good multifamily at a lower, maybe a lower price point, because the rents don't exactly make sense right now. And then they have to live in that one unit for a year, obviously.
Yeah, I see what you're saying. Like if the rents are $600 each, most investors are going to be like, "Oh man, this is going to be like a big."
You could get a
pain."
discounted
But
property.
yeah, if
You
you're a
can get-
first-time buyer, you could just move in and then maybe raise the rent at some point.
Potential to save thousands of dollars, and then afterwards, I believe you have to live there for about a year right now. After that year, you can move into the other unit and then rent out that first unit back at market rents, and now you have a property. And
That's a pretty good hack, actually.
I think it's a
yeah.
great idea. So,
Yeah,
really
it's
nice.
like one of the best ways to force appreciation in the property. for
Raising
sure.
rents.
Yeah.
and that gives you time to go in there. You can do any renovations you need, and if you get it for a good price point, and if the prices go up over time again, you might be able to talk to Mike and get a refinance.
Yeah.
And then use that money as another down payment to buy your next property.
Mike, explain how a refi works or a refinance.
Yeah, so a refinance, let me try to simplify this. So you have a mortgage on the property, okay? And then 4 years down the road, let's say rates drop and you're like, if I refinance into this new rate, I could really save like a couple $100 a month, a couple grand a year, right? So you would come to me, you would tell me that you want to refinance. How it works is we get a new lender to take over the existing mortgage. So say you owe $250, we can refinance. Say the property value comes up at $400K. If you qualify, we can get you $300,000. From that $300,000, $250K will go and buy out the previous lender that's holding the current mortgage. You'll have $50K left over to do whatever you want with. I recommend buying other properties with it. And then you have a new existing mortgage of $300K. With the lower rate, that $300K might be costing you the same amount that the $250K was costing you, right? So it's kind of like a good way to pull equity out of property and use it for really growing your portfolio.
Yeah, so you could use that as like a tool. Like you already got the first duplex. like you said, maybe 4 years down the road, rates drop, you refi, then you go pick up another one.
Right. Yeah. Yeah. It's a
While
great
you've
way
also
to
been
come up with
working
down
at your
payments.
job, saving more money.
Yeah.
So
Yeah,
that's pretty
I mean,
cool.
that's like basically the burst strategy, right?
Yeah. Like refinancing from forced appreciation in properties, pulling out that equity, is like the name of the game, I think, when it comes to real estate investing.
Talking about force appreciation, I want to talk to Graeme really quickly about a subject here. He's as basically our general contractor of the group. With people having to maybe stay at their houses for a little bit longer, but maybe they already own a house, they can't buy another house. Is there things that they can do? I know that we have the secondary dwelling units, or ADUs, which is additional dwelling units. How do you see that affecting maybe the market? Because you do a lot of that with investors, I would assume, right?
Yeah, in terms of ADUs, and now you can have up to 3 units on any residential property.
Okay, and do they have to be, for example, I think the system is one could be attached to the property, so you'll have your main unit, a additional unit, you could be either in the basement or upstairs, and then the third has to be detached, I believe, right?
Correct. So yeah, there's 2 ADUs allowed to any principal or single family home. And you have the main unit, and then you have an ADU, could be in the basement, could be upstairs. And then just like you said, we have one in the backyard, detached property. And there's obviously certain specifications for all of those ADUs, but it's a great way to add value to a property. And
Well, now you're turning a single family home into 3 units
Yeah.
without having to probably have to go through the hoops of making it a legal triplex, because
yeah, I think we're going to see a lot more of this, especially with immigration. I mean, in terms of affordability, we're going to see a lot more units come out of these properties. And because we're allowing for this, we need the space. We have these people coming to the country. They need somewhere to live. This is a great tactic to combat that and force appreciation of your property.
There's actually a company last year that did it's an international survey across Canada, but specifically Windsor. There's actually 29,000 properties that are potentially eligible for an ADU.
What was the website called?
I think the guys, maybe we could pop it up on the screen. I was reading it earlier on my Mac, but maybe I'll ship it over to you
Yeah, I
guys.
forget the name of the website.
We'll get it put up. But yeah, you know what it is?
ADU
ADU search. That's what it
search.
is.
ADU
So
search. And what does ADU search do?
yeah, so ADU search, for those of you that don't know, if you go on adusearch.ca, you can actually find which lots are potentially eligible for an ADU. So you'll see like lots in green, which means you're more likely to get approved. You'll
And
see
it
lots
works with any city, or does it work with specific cities?
I mean, I'm only Windsor Essex, so I've only searched
You only
Windsor
looked in
Essex.
Windsor Essex.
I want to say it's just Windsor right now.
Okay.
That's what I think
So
too.
because I tried looking into Tecumseh and LaSalle, and I got gray area, which means like no information.
No info.
I want to say it's just the inside of the Windsor area, which will be your West End, your downtown. You got Ford City, East Windsor, South Windsor.
There's tons of properties eligible. Like if you look at it, it's like, oh my God, like you could almost start a company just building ADUs.
So if you're an investor, Windsor investor trying to build ADUs, I mean, check out this website, ADU search.
It's pretty big.
And take a look, see what you can build on.
Yeah.
So just so I understand, Mike, there is a way to finance these, and you said you can actually buy a property. So if you own a property, a single family home, if you can actually finance these through some banks by putting 20% down just on the build of the ADU.
Absolutely, yeah. So there are lenders that do it. So yes, 20% down. Basically, it's like a construction loan, pretty much.
What are these ADUs costing? What does it cost to build one of these tiny homes in a backyard?
I'm seeing between like 150 and 200K. If anybody's interested in building a ADU, get in touch with me. I can put you in touch with a really good company in the Windsor area to build an ADU for you.
What's the interest rate like on that? Like, is it similar to, it'd be construction loan, right?
Yeah,
Is it
so because they're A lenders, is generally like 5-6% right now.
Okay.
Yeah, they're pretty good rates, and it's a really good way to add value to your property. And I think it's really good too for people who like want to get into investing, but they don't want to like take like a huge leap and go buy like multifamilies. Maybe they just want something in their backyard, right? That's producing extra cash flow. Because like, yeah, for the cost of building these ADUs, like the cap rates are pretty crazy. Like you can build a place for like 150 to 200 and rent it out for like $1,500, $1,800,
Well, when we were at coffee the other day, we were talking about, I don't know if it was one of your clients, but someone had purchased a home. They built the ADU, and then the appraised value went like through the roof.
Yeah. So a lot of these ADUs, they're really bringing the value of these properties up. Like you buy a house for like 400K, you put an ADU in the back, you know, maybe all in, you're at like 550, 600. Like the appraisal could come back at like, you know, like close to 7.
That's crazy.
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah. It's really good
It's a
value.
big
man.
equity add.
Absolutely.
Yeah. I think we should get Clark Galley on here sometime to talk about ADUs because that's kind of his specialty.
I think it's so cool. Like potentially 29,000 lots being available for ADUs. Like,
Yeah, incredible.
Yeah, it's
and
amazing.
we definitely need it, and they're quick too, right? And especially for the pace that we're growing at, I think there's going to be huge business there.
that's awesome.
So let me ask you guys, as the realtors, Andrew and Jeremy, what sort of tips do you have for new real estate investors? What strategies have you used to find properties to house hack? To what other strategies do you have for new investors, and how do you work with them?
I'll let you kick it off, Big J.
Great question, Graham. Basically, we have to look at finding their why first, like figure out what they're focused on. I think a lot of people get too crazy in the sense, like even going back in, like even last year and the year before, everyone's like, I want to make $1 million in cash flow. But at the end of the day, especially with the interest rates being a lot higher, we have to kind of go back to the basics and figure out what works. It's going to be a slow growth for most of these investors that are buying a property, for example, their first one. And unless they're, with that big idea of going in with other people's money and try to partner up
What
with
do you mean other people's money?
So
OPM.
we'll talk about that another subject there, but more or less, some people go a little bit crazy and start working with other friends and family or other individuals to grow their portfolios at a quicker pace. Most of the investors are buying their first one. They're getting the hang of what being an investor actually is. And then they may add a second or third one over the course of another year or two before they make it and maybe a business if they like it. Because for some people, and investing's not for everyone. If it was, everyone would do it. So we have to look at it and go, what works best for you? If you're someone that's a little bit more hands-on, maybe you'd want to go that student rental route. And especially right now with interest rates being a little bit higher and a lot of the house prices being down, I think you can get a pretty decent student rental for like high 3s into the 4s that would have 6, 7, or potentially more bedrooms, because some people are converting the living rooms and dining rooms into bedrooms. We may or may not see, and I never advise doing anything in the basement that does not have proper height. I always try to say, if you can stay away from that because it's such a gray area, focus on...
What do you mean that's a gray area?
Well, building code states you need to have a certain height. For example, I believe with Windsor it's 6'8", and that's for the finished floor and finished ceiling. Other people have heard that they can get away with a minimum 6'5" under everything for the most part, as long as there is proper height somewhere else. So there's just too much hearsay on what's right and what's wrong.
Depends on what the city inspector says.
It's you're at the mercy of the city, and I don't like ever being at the mercy of the city. So when I tell my investors, I said, look, if we can have convert a bedroom, a living room or dining room into a bedroom, do that versus the basement. Have that for storage, and then you're gonna get more money with more rooms above anyways, right? So if we can focus on getting about $550, $600 per room, and we have 6 or 7 bedrooms, and your rents are now pushing $3,600 a month, inclusive, a mortgage on something like that will still be around probably $2,200. Taxes, insurance, utilities are probably going to be pushing closer to that $3,000 total amount. So for an investor, if you want to make cash flow right now, something like a student rental will, for the most part, or should cash flow around, like for example, the thing I just used, around $600, give or take a bit. And then the write-offs with your account, well, you can figure that out elsewhere. Duplexes. I'm going through a duplex renovation. I know you are too, as Graham. We have a little competition there.
I'm going a little faster, but that's okay.
You know what? I took a
Tortoise in the hair or what?
Oh my God. So anyways,
We should talk about that.
my place is already gutted. First day. We're on day 3.
Any bugs?
We'll not talk about that. It's fine now. We've cleaned it up. It's good.
But what kind of bugs were there?
Supposedly cockroaches.
Oh, okay.
So like I woke up this morning. I woke up Tuesday morning to a text from my contractor, and he was like, "Hey, just heads up. I found these little friends of yours." And I'm like, "Oh, those are not my friends. Maybe the previous owner's friends." But basically, once we figured and we were able to open the walls up and see if there's insulation or not, and started removing all the debris, we were able to take a look at the property and go, okay, those things we found they were dead. They weren't alive. We haven't found anything since, so we've since moved on. Obviously, watching if we need to bring somebody in, we can bring someone in.
When do you think you'll be done, Jeremy?
At the pace we're going at, probably in another week. I'm joking.
Year 2100.
Oh, okay. We'll stop on that. Just because
Well, there's 100 million
Jeanette took
Canadians,
3 years, okay? So it's fine. With this project,
No predicted. Yeah. What's the prediction?
2.5 months, I think.
2.5 months.
I mean, we're already got it to the studs. We have installation, everything coming, drywall coming tomorrow.
So it's February. What's the date today, guys?
8th.
8th of February.
Well,
We're looking mid.
I'm still waiting on my quote from my electrician here.
Oh, yeah. So let's just blame the electrician.
Blame the electrician. My contractor's like, get your electrician in so I can start drywalling the walls.
Who found your contractor for you? Let's just touch up on that again.
Okay, so when you have multiple properties on the go, you have a limited supply of workers, and you get one of my guys that just finished up another project. Let me know that he's going on vacation for 2 months. So the guy that we originally had that was going to do the work, unfortunately, let me know last minute that he's not going to be able to take on the project. So, as a good friend, I said, hey, Graeme, buddy, how are you? I need a contractor. And you kind of laughed a little bit, and you're like, well, do I really want to help you out during this competition? Which you have been such a great help in the past, and you did give me a guy that's
I think it's fair, Jerry. You helped me find the property that I bought, and I hooked you up with a contractor. I mean, did I ask the contractor to charge you a little bit more and to take a little bit longer? Maybe. But
Graham's taking a cut.
Yeah.
Graham's taking a cut.
10%,
so how far along since our first episode, you just I think 1 week into that project at that point?
Yeah.
How far along? It's been 3 weeks now.
Listen, my guys are incredibly fast. It took them a week to finish an attic. I just spoke to them this morning. We're looking at a completion date of February 17th. So we're about a month. Yeah, it'll take.
I think I was there a week and a half after he took possession, and the bathrooms were being done.
Yeah, we're talking brand new kitchens, brand new bathrooms, finishing an attic, new light fixtures, new doors, new floors, new trim.
It's looking pretty good. I mean, everything's white right now. I mean, I walked in there. I'm like, even the door handles were white.
You thought you were in heaven.
Oh, maybe.
Oh, new windows as well.
Oh, the windows. Your window guy's great.
New roof as well. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. So we're flying through that project, and I think speed is something that a lot of people don't consider. And if you are working on a project, I think you should really consider speed. Because if you're working on multiple projects or working until you get to the next project, if you're working on a project and it's taking you a year to get through a renovation because I want to do this, I want to do that, and adding things, you have to remember, your renter might appreciate these things, but only to a certain extent. And you might not get your full value out, especially, it does depend on your neighborhood you're buying on. But if you're buying in a C area, B area, you just get away with you might be able to get away with a quick reno. Doesn't have to be perfect.
You want to take a look at the neighborhood.
Yeah.
Like if you're in a high-end neighborhood like South Windsor, you might want some better finishes. But if you're on maybe the West End or Ford City, it doesn't really matter as much.
Kind of want to base it off your tenant quality as well, right? I think that's what you're kind of trying to say there. Yeah. And people are like, always, I think I got a few, comments in the past about, oh, you guys are just fixing everything up. But what people don't understand with some of the projects that me and you do there is we're taking properties that are pretty dilapidated. They're properties they're houses that you and I, no one really wants to live in. They're not good quality. Like there's mold, there's stuff wrong with it, right? We're fixing these properties up, and we're able to create safe environments for people to live in as well. And I think people forget that, and they're nice, but you want to have something that's a good product. You want to showcase a decent enough product to cater to the clientele that you want, right? Obviously, base it off the neighborhoods, but yeah, I mean, these houses before that we took possession of them, they weren't great by any means, and I would not want my
family of cockroaches in one of them.
Yeah, of course, right? So now we're making them safer and cleaner, and the neighbors, the amount of neighbors we've had come over, especially with the last one we just did, and say, thank you because it was a nice store on the property, right? So the neighborhood likes that, and they want to see that because whenever you do a project, you're increasing the value of the neighborhood as a whole. So the more projects you do in that particular area, the neighborhood increases, and maybe the tenant quality increases in that area as well. people will take notice. Yeah.
Yeah, that's huge. And further to Andrew's point, I mean, you got to take a look at that area. I tell this to my clients all the time, you know, and I love helping my clients as a general contractor. I mean, I love helping my clients when we're doing renovations, decide on what kind of finishes to use. You know, if we're in that B or C area, sure, I'll put in the, you know, beautiful tile in your kitchen, but you might be able to get away with vinyl plank. So there's always different strategies you can use when you're actually doing the renovations, value add, adding a bedroom in, like Jeremy had said. You know, if you're in a student rental area, they might not appreciate, you know, 2 living rooms, a dining room, living room as much as a family would, but, you know, you can get an extra room rental, you know, in that house. So if you're able to, you know, convert, then definitely take advantage of it.
That's good advice. Thanks, Graeme.
I love that.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think too, I just want to touch on that like time is really important, especially right now. A year and a half ago, you could have got away with really taking your time on a flip because prices kept going up. Now, market's a
And
little
mortgage
more...
payments were so low.
No, yeah, right. Mortgage payments were cheaper too, right? And now, you know, like, yeah, it's really good to get in and out of there and not focus too much on like little small details just because, you know, in 3 months, we don't know where the market could go. So you really want to protect your project and your money by getting in and out of there real quick.
That's some good tips, Mike. Andrew,
What's up, brother?
our resident realtor over here as well, that deals with a lot of first-time buyers. And
Yeah.
do you have any tips for us, like for
Yeah.
our listeners?
Yeah, I'd probably say if you're looking to get into your first property, most important thing for me is cash flow. So people have to remember that when they buy a rental property, they're buying a business. So they're not just buying it to, you know, say I'm a landlord. Like, you're actually buying a business. You want to make sure it actually makes money. 2, you want good location. So if the building burns down tomorrow, like, you know, you're still going to have that land. You can always build a new building or put another ADU or do something, but the land's very important. And 3 is going to be value add. That's what I had, value add. So if you could somehow raise the rent, like maybe by doing a kitchen or a bathroom, find a good value add. Could be like doing the ADU. It's going to get your appraisal up, but that's what I'd probably say. You know, look for cash flow, location, value add.
What about for home buyers? So what about someone who's, you know, looking to buy a house, let's say not a duplex, let's say traditional,
It's like a
just
single
family
fam.
home.
Yeah.
What are you suggesting?
I'd suggest, because a lot of times,
What are you seeing?
so everyone has different like expectations, right? Some people are like, I just want a house. So that's like, you know, obviously very easy to work with. Some people are like, I want like this. So obviously the first category, very easy to work with. Second category, if you could check most of the boxes with your first home and, you know, still get in at a good price that's affordable for you, because everything's going to come down to payments, just like buying a car. You want to make sure your payments are affordable, but check most of the boxes. If most of them are checked, buy the house, because you're not going to be in that house for the rest of your life.
Yeah.
Like I had a listing on Hickory. The first time home buyers that purchased it, they might not live there for forever. You know, they're just starting out. They just had a newborn kid. The payments were really affordable. They might move to a different street or maybe a different city if they don't like Windsor anymore. But yeah, I think if you could check most of the boxes, it works for your payments. You might not be there for forever. Pull the trigger and buy it.
What do you think the biggest mistake is that first-time home buyers make?
Probably overanalyzing too many things.
Yeah.
100%. Yeah.
What are they analyzing, overanalyzing?
Well, they're like, okay, so obviously for guys like us, we've done a lot of different real estate transactions. Mike's financed a lot. You've purchased some lot. You guys have bought a lot. Jay's sold a lot. But I think, yeah, like sometimes people just get analysis paralysis. Like they'll keep looking at tons of stuff. I think you got to figure out like what your needs are. Like I said, if it checks most of the boxes, and then just go for it.
You're not wrong on that too. The amount of people over the years I've had go, oh, you know, the house is, the paint inside is yellow. You can paint it. Don't overthink everything. I've had people go, oh, the appliances are not stainless steel. Don't worry about that. The appliances are.
You can always change
You
it.
can change them out tomorrow,
Like
right?
unless you got millions of dollars and you're building a custom home, like to the point where it's perfect to what you want, you're never going to find it in the market.
A lot of these things can be changed, and they're little things too. You can go on Pinterest and design the house after the way you want. I mean, you can get a decent kitchen these days for a few $1,000s. You don't have to go over crazy. So if the kitchen's a little bit older and you're like, oh, maybe I want a new one. But if you're saving $10,000 or more compared to the next house that's the exact same thing that maybe has a little bit nicer kitchen, focus on
You can
the
always change
basics
it.
and honestly, the amount of people that, like, for example, my parents bought a house, their last house, like they lived there for 6 years. They go, oh, I hate the color green. It's like mint green walls. And then they brought in 5 painters, had quotes. They were going to paint. They never did. They lived there for 6 years before they moved. They never painted the walls.
So like that happens all the time. And I know some of my buyers have been like, there's places like Habitat for Humanity. Like one of my, actually one of my sellers, went
Love
there and
that
bought
store.
they bought like a whole kitchen set for like cheap. And it was like nice oak cabinets. So they picked them up for like $1,000 instead of spending like, I mean, kitchens you can spend like, whatever your checkbook
Right.
is, you could spend on a kitchen. But for first-time home buyer, I think, there's some cheap options out there.
One thing too I want to touch on for first-time home buyers, if you do see a house and you love it, but there's a couple things like say the appliances, and like that's going to deter you away from buying the property. We do have options where there's like cashback offers where we can get you 3% cashback on the property.
Really?
Yeah, so you can take that money and go buy brand new appliances the next day.
How about mortgage plus improvement?
Yeah, so we can do mortgage plus improvements. A little tricky though, because usually they want the quotes from the contractor.
Sure.
The contractor has to get paid after the work's done though. That's the only thing. So you got to find a contractor that's okay with doing the work and then getting paid after. A lot of them aren't down for that. Some of them are.
They want some cash up front.
Yeah. So
Well, these are all things that we need to know too, right?
Right.
So, all right. Well, I think we had a really good episode here of episode 2, talking about first-time home buyers, some immigration. Does anyone have anything else they want to add really quickly?
No, I think
we touched on everything. I think
almost everything. Yeah.
the moral of the story is that there's a lot of people coming to Canada. I think new investors can capitalize on the fact that everyone wants to come to this great country, and there's certain ways to do it. There's agents like us that sell it. We got Graeme here, who's a contractor, who can maybe help you with the project, and Mike could probably get you the financing on it.
Yeah, absolutely.
I like it. So thank you for everyone for tuning in. If you can like, subscribe, and share this. Once again, my name is Jeremy McGraw. Right beside me, I have Graeme Thompson, Andrew MacLeod, and last but not least, Michael Citron.
Absolutely. And if anybody wants to get in touch, you can find our links in the bio.